been trying to imagine what it was like after a world war. And as a therapist, we work with people who are kind of still living with the effects of the war, either biological effects of how they adapted and changed during wartime and the trauma that was sort of genetically embodied and then passed on, or just the simplicity of patterns of behaviour, especially around food is a good example from the war, and the big impact on having enough to eat and having to grow your own and having to go on rations, and how that affects people of that age, and the whole idea and not wanting to waste food. There's all kinds of ways that widespread devastation and things such as war can do to a population. So I'm just trying to think about the kind of impact that this particular event is having now, and I agree with whatever somebody said about forever you'll be talking about, you know, before this happened and after. It'll be pre and post this devastating event. Now, I'm not naming the event specifically because I have been thinking more about the whole idea of, rather than give your energy to an old situation and spend time kind of criticizing something that doesn't work and building the new. And the energy that has gone into and the language that has been created around this current situation is so heavily imbued with meaning that it's important we start to look at how we break through. So even words like the new normal mean a very particular thing in this context. So my challenge I want to put to you is, what could the new normal look like if we were to accept and understand that what we have been taught has been going on isn't quite the truth? Whether there was a real threat or not, the way it's been handled has not really been for our benefit. It has been a manipulation. And the way we can see that more and more for ourselves is that the manipulation is continuing after what was a threat has gone. Now, part of the argument and the evidence of governmental papers and their kind of program was to deliberately keep us in fear. And you could argue that keeping us in fear makes us behave in a way that would keep people safe. But there is now enough evidence to suggest that it's not about that at all. The reason that we have been taught to be fearful and that we may spread something, and therefore the way that we accept how to have contact, who to have contact with, whether we can go out, whether we can assemble, whether we can meet with people, is about conditioning an acceptance of being policed and being controlled and being tracked and traced and giving away certain rights and freedoms. So let's go bigger than that. Why can't we go bigger and say, yeah, okay, well, the system was broken anyway. It's a class disease that we've been faced with, because the whole idea of, as Russell Brand was saying today, if you can work from home, you know, i.e. you don't have to use your hands, if you like, then you can work from home. Otherwise, if it's manual labour, you've got to go. But these are the people that are losing their incomes and being told they're selfish to wanting to go and try and carry that on. Living paycheck to paycheck in order to buy food is not a system that works, is it? So we have the opportunity to build a new system. But if we can't imagine what that looks like, if we can't imagine what we want that system to be like, and if we're not prepared to be active in creating it, then we're going to have to accept what we're given, right? That's the reason someone else wants to control us, because let's be generous and let's suggest that they're doing it for the right reasons, because they want to parent stupid kids into doing the right thing. So let's say that's the model. Well, some people are like that, to be honest. Some people do want to be parented and don't want responsibility, but the majority do want responsibility. So if they want responsibility, you've got to act with responsibility. So pointing the finger, being the victim, using blame and shame isn't helping anybody. So what we have to do really is we have to decide what do we want and how do we make it? How do we create it? What is the infrastructure? And ideally the infrastructure of a new system is, rather than one of a hierarchical one where parents control the children, it is a hierarchical system where, like our body works, every part has its own job, but it's equally important, and every part of the system is valued and validated and is given exactly what it needs to be respected and looked after and protected and kept healthy and happy and all that. So we have to begin to respect people, we have to begin to include people, we have to begin to create the movement we want. And a hierarchical system is a fractal system. That fractal system recognizes the whole and the part, and the whole and the part are equally representative. So the whole must represent the part and the part must represent the whole. That is proper responsibility. Every person, and if you like you could say every cell in your body, is equally needs, food and air and water. We need the right things to function, and we need to be working with each other, otherwise the system doesn't work. So how do we make a hierarchical system where everybody counts, everybody has a say? And it's not easy, because people have got different views. The difference is people are allowed different views, but an agreement about respect, an agreement about everybody counting, and an agreement about conduct and responsibility, I don't think that is that complicated or that difficult. And if everybody counts, that has to be everybody. You can't say we're all part of consciousness except him or except her. So there have to be consequences for actions, and we have to help people see actions, but everybody has the equal capacity to love and to give and receive love, to be conscious and be part of, or acknowledge that part of consciousness. So the way we run an infrastructure must consider things like laws, regulations, sanctions, and obviously how we deal with people who are difficult to reach because of their trauma. The people that are psychopathic, the people who damage other people because of their trauma. And so we do need to handle consequences, and we do need to be protective of people's boundaries and rights. But I think there is a way to see things very differently and to behave very differently and to create something very different. So the challenge I'm really putting out there is, how do you see that happening? How do you see yourself being part of that? How do you see this new hierarchical conscious life, conscious lifestyle? How do you want to be a part of it? Because if you don't become a part of it, you will lose what few rights we still have at the moment. And it appears to have been an illusion most of the time anyway. So, because if it can be taken away like that, it was only an illusion. Okay? We lost the ability to work, the right to work, the right to assemble, the right to private family life, the right to assemble, the right to freedom of speech, freedom of information, the right of expression, the right to, all of these things have been taken away like that. Okay, so if that can happen, if you think you're getting it back, be very careful, because it's going to be conditional. There's conditions attached. That's what you're getting at the moment. You're getting a little bit back with condition. If you do this, you've got to do this though. It's not straightforward. You can only have that if you do it this way and that way, and you're being incrementally maintained at a level of compliance. So even if you completely buy that there has been a threat, even if you completely buy that there is potentially a second wave, and even if you buy that the only way out of this is to have track and trace monitoring and then vaccines to save us, firstly do your research, because it's all rubbish. But let's just say there's something in it. If you believe that the lifestyle that you're going to get back is anything other than a totalitarian dictatorship and a controlled police system, then you haven't understood what's been going on. I'm sorry. The only way it will become something that is acceptable for a free human being to live in is if we begin to organize and share our thoughts, share our desires, share our concerns with each other, and we begin to respect each other. And some people are not ready. You may be listening to this and think I'm a conspiracy theorist. I don't care. I'm saying that I respect everybody's right to have freedom of speech, and not hate speech. We're not talking about hate speech. We're talking about the freedom to express themselves, their thoughts, their ideas, and be creative and grow food, and we shouldn't be afraid of losing our rights to water. Water is going to be a very valuable commodity. Air, all of these things, people are trying to privatize air and privatize water. That's not good, right? So people shouldn't, there's enough food to feed everybody. There's enough, the world has enough, but if it keeps getting sucked up by a small few and we keep letting it, it's going to keep happening, and we'll just become a different race of people. We'll have a different, we will genetically adapt to that, and especially if we actually get help with that genetic adaptation, okay? So survival of the fittest is happening right now. Survival of the fittest is the way in which this is being enforced. People that are committing suicide, people that are dying because they're not getting their treatment, people that are dying because they had comorbidities and they were put under enormous stress, those are all collateral damage to cleaning up what a handful of people think is a better human race. So survival is about cooperation, consciousness, love and connection, and we've been pushed down into the brainstem to compete and to become afraid and to sort of fend for ourselves. That's not, we've evolved beyond that, and the people that are doing this are sort of stuck in another phase that we need to transcend. That we need to transcend their fear. So at the moment, the people that think they know best have pushed us into a deeper fear. We need to transcend that fear that they have in order to build something new. So how does that look to you? How are you gonna start small cells, small groups of love and respect, inclusion, and begin to do your part in building a better life for yourself, for your children, for their children? Otherwise, those few people are going to manipulate the way in which the infrastructure, they own the infrastructure at the moment. We need to make a new one. That's what it comes down to. So how are you going to do it? Let's do it. Let's make it happen.